So thank you all for coming. I'm gonna do a little, not a little presentation, long presentation, but a little research. So yes, like Susanne mentioned, I come from Timișoara, which is a small town in Romania nowadays, but it used to be part of the Austro-Hungarian Empire and the Ottoman Empire at some point. So I applied to this residency with the research project on how we see how the periphery of the empire is seen from the center, and especially how this little Vienna myth started, and what it means in the capital. So an outside view from an insider, let's say. So this is the map of the empire, and you can see there's not just one little Vienna, there's actually 8 of them. There's also Arad in Romania, which is also dubbed Little Vienna, also Trnăuț in Ukraine, and Lviv, and Bielsko-Biala, and also Sofia and Ruse in Bulgaria. So first mention of Timișoara as Klein Wien that I found was in 1858 in a newspaper, a humorous newspaper in Vienna, where the article makes a comparison between life in Vienna and life in Timișoara, and he doesn't see much difference, basically. And then this one I added, how little Vienna lives and has fun, and it's very you know, it's a bit critical towards I don't know, public drunkenness in Timișoara, but also you can see here people are wearing masks because of poor quality of air, which I find very relatable nowadays as well. This is a nowadays article from 2013 about Timișoara as Klein Wien. So you can get the gist that is also a touristic ploy that is used to make the city more attractive. So very short explanation. Timișoara, so the first name of Timișoara means a castle on River Timiș. Now, if you know a little bit about Timișoara, is not actually on Timiș, but it's on Vega, and Vega is Little Timiș. So you see, we have a thing going with the little stuff. And this is a very short history. So very approximately was part of Hungary for 300 years, and then Ottoman Empire for 115 years, and then Austrian Empire for 100, Austro-Hungarian Empire for 100 years, and then a little bit of Banat Republic, which was, I think, 2 weeks or something, and then Romania for the last 100 so years. So it's a huge chunk of time in which the region belonged to, let's say, Hungarian or German sphere of influence. So when little Vienna was born was after Timișoara was bombarded by the Austrian army in 1716 was the siege of Timișoara, and my research kind of starts with that and goes until the Treaty of Trianon in 1918. So when Banat is transferred to Romania. So the imperial multiculturalism is something that is very present in the empire, but it also it's in a nowadays discourse in Timișoara as well. And I think it's a certain type of multiculturalism where certain ethnicities are, let's say, in the spotlight, and others, such as Romanian or Roma, are left out of the spotlight. And you can see here, this is the nationalities in the empire, and on the right here you have people from Siebenbürger, so Bürgen, so that's like Ardeal of nowadays, which as you will see later can be also mislabeled as Banat or Transylvania. This is the actual list that mentions here at the end Siebenbürgen. So this may also stand for Banat or Pennsylvania, depending on, I don't know, whim. Okay, so the occupation with multiculturalism was something very obvious in the empire, so much so that there were ethnographic studies in Vienna, but also outside of Vienna to do this type. And you can see here the Viennese types. You have different jobs, and then you also have like more of these constructed scenes. And you also have a bit of ethnic diversity. You can see here on the left, you have a Slovak, and then here you have an Orthodox student. I mean, there's probably more. It's just that I didn't get to see them or to get a good quality photos of them. And then there's the World Expo in 1873, which was this time Banat was part of Hungary, and there was a lot of publications that were made on occasion to kind of promote a certain type of image of the empire. Those publications, as I've learned, were kind of pricey, so it was mainly the upper middle class that could afford to buy them, but they were also used as official presents for dignitaries or, you know, people visiting Vienna or Budapest or so. So here is an interesting thing in the World Expo. It's like a village, like human zoo village type of thing, which was popular at the time and even later on. And so there's this street, and on both sides there are farmhouses from different ethnicities around the empire, but also a little bit further. The call was for everybody in Europe, but except for the Austro-Hungarian Empire, it was only Russians and Swedish who have sent houses. So in the middle, there's the Hungarian pavilion, and on the sides you can see the village. So here there's in the left, it's a Székely house. Székelys are a Hungarian population in Transylvania and Ardeal. And on the right, are Saxons from Siebenbürgen, so also Ardeal. This is the Romanian house, which looks more like, so these look more like farmhouses, and this looks more like a cottage. And there was actually a lot of talk at the time, and people were kind of shocked by this difference. And there were a lot of commentaries, and the organizers were asked, like, why did they make such huge, why this huge disparity? Some of the farmhouses were highly decorated. There were a lot of objects inside, made super beautiful. There were a lot of people populating them. So, whilst this is a Romanian house in Banat. So not just a typical Romanian house, because you have to keep in mind that Romania also had, the Kingdom of Romania had its own pavilion, which was very luxurious. So they were kind of, the organizers were accused of having, of being biased, basically. And you can see there's a quote, it is the only house by a people of Latin origin. For sure, it is not from one of the Western Latin peoples who, quickened by Germanic blood, have achieved a higher level of culture. So this is one of the organizers, in a similar way in which festivals nowadays, when are addressed about the lack of women or minorities, they will give an answer which will sound very similar, like there weren't any, or they weren't good enough, or something like that. So my interpretation is like it's a passive-aggressive response to the already building up of I don't know, public criticism towards the way the whole exhibition was organized. And you can read more in this quoted article. And of course, there were types at the World Exhibition. You can see this caricature of what was then considered exotic types. So I was also looking into the research. I was also interested in if people from Banat were ever considered exotic people. I think the answer is maybe not. Okay, so different type of research is the national costume of the empire. So you can see now it got a bit later, and then they don't promote those types of pictures as being, you know, different races or human types, but they address the costumes, which is what they actually did from the beginning. So we can play a little game and spot the ones from Banat. So I need to spot anyone. You can see here, if you see my pointer, there's a Hungarian woman from Takova, which is a village in Banat. And then there's another woman from Karansebes, which is part of the of Banat as well. And here again, another Hungarian man from Karansebes. So these are specifically Schwaben costumes in Banat. So I can tell you that I recognized them when I was meeting with Mrs. Astrid Hammer at Volkskunde Museum. I recognized them immediately as being Schwaben from Banat or from Timișoara because of these very specific costumes that they have. But they are not from Timișoara, neither of them. And then there was also in the National History Museum, there was also a way to present the empire through the collection of rocks and let's say not just rocks, but also precious metals and meteorite and fossils from not just the empire, but in the first rooms, I thought it was especially the empire. So you can see in the first there are Banat crystals, and I think they were collected during the time of empire because they are labeled as Banat. So Banat, as it was labeled Tyrol or other provinces in the empire, and not the town and well, Romania or Hungary, or depending on what it was. And yeah, and I put also a you can see here an ammonite from a town in Romania, which has the name Poceritas Banaticum, because I also found it kind of funny how names like that were started to be given to objects which were prehistoric, but started to have like a nationality almost with names that were given at a later date. And then you can see gold from Roșia Montana, which is something that I think to people from Romania is very, or to me at least, it was very an emotional discovery, because there was long years protest to include Roșia Montana in UNESCO heritage, and to prevent the exploitation of the gold by cyanide in the region. And this year, finally, it was approved. And then on the last image, there is a comment on the mother of all mines. It refers to a silver mine, Schwarz in Austria, which is partly it belonged to Habsburgs, and it kind of partly was the reason of their immense wealth. So this was interesting. Like, looking at labels is very important because labels transmit locations in a physical place, but because of political development in the area, that place can belong to different states. So mislabeling is a very real thing, and something that I always had to take into account when conducting a research. What was missing from the museum was a dinosaur, a Romanian dinosaur, let's say, or a Siebenbürgen dinosaur. This dinosaur, Magyarosaurus dacus, is a small dinosaur, you can say little sauropod dinosaur from Herzegovina. It was it was it's one of the examples of the dwarfism that can happen in dinosaurs when they are restricted by land dimensions. So Hatzekbazin being an island in the middle of the sea, they had to shrink down in order to survive, which is something that it happened later on a much larger scale. I want to point out the labeling that I made, but nowadays it's called Magyarosaurus dacus. So that would be Magyar lizard, Asian Magyar lizard. And its first name, this is the name that was given in 1935. So already the region belonged to Romania. So the first name that it had, Timisoara dacus, which was given by Baron Nopsha, was in 1915, if I'm not mistaken. So a little before the Trianon Treaty, so before it was in Hungary at that time. So I think to me it's very interesting how, yes, something prehistoric that it's way before any empire and any sort of limitation can, through the mere action of labeling, naming, can become a political tool, let's say. So this is not in Naturhistorische Museum, it's in Brussels. This is my break for water. So I looked at a lot of things. I talked to a lot of people. A lot of the material I would not show it to you today because it doesn't connect well, and because I didn't have time to really process and get to the meaning of it, let's say. But Klein Wien, so Timișoara, I think, as you can see by now, it's a huge missing piece. I didn't find any types of Timișoara. I didn't find any photography from then, any campaign. I couldn't find the imperial propaganda that I saw in other places, even in Romania. I didn't find it in Timișoara. And then I went to the real Klein Wien, which is very close to Wien. And yes, I made this photography, which I hope you will find it amusing. And this is how I end my presentation. And if you are interested in some of the things I said, or if you want more information about them, please feel free to ask any questions. I will continue this research when I go home to Timișoara, but also I hope to continue. I mean, I still have almost a week here, and I still have a lot of plans for Vienna. So yeah, so there probably is going to be other presentations, maybe more. Let's hope for more. I don't know, more sense and. Okay. Thank you.
Does anyone have a question? Connie, please.
Hello, I'm still clapping, but of course I also have a question. thank you so much for sharing this wonderful research and presentation. I was really inspired by the immense work you gathered in these different museums you went. I mean, I really want to go there too and discover some pieces. What I would be very interested is how do you like to proceed, especially with the discovery of Klein Vienna? Is there anything you are going to plan there? Any performance, or are you going to, I don't know, do some drawings about those investigations you had in the museums? What's your next things coming up?
So my next thing is I'm going to try to set an appointment with some other archives or technical archives in Vienna next week, and then meet with some people from the Natural History Museum. And yeah, I hope to do more drawings and text about the whole thing. Is just very early stages right now, and I was just having so much material to process that I couldn't I just couldn't get to that part yet. And then as to Klein Wien, I don't know. I mean, it was kind of magical to go there. This is the small village around a hill, and on top of the hill there's this monastery, and it looks nothing like Timisoara or Banat. It's really very, very small. And I didn't see anyone going there, so I don't know. I didn't feel that there's a connection. I mean, I went there because it's a real place, and I thought it was too good not to go and see what's that. And for now, I think it's just going to be that photo that I've shown you, and we'll see. We'll see.
Thank you so much for sharing this. I think I did not know Klein Wien, and I also didn't know that Timișoara is called Little Vienna. I just got to know it when I was the first time in Timișoara. So I think this is something very interesting to get to know, and also to link what does it mean to compare a city with another city, or how is the perception of the people in this little village in Klein Wien. And I would be very curious to hear to go there as well with you, maybe sometime, if you
that would be great.
to let me show you other way around, you showing me around in Klein Wien.
Well, what's really cute in Klein Wien is that there's this restaurant, and in front of it there's what is called like a train, and it's Orient Express. It's written on the Orient Express, and it has Paris, Berlin, Klein Wien, and then Istanbul. So I thought it was also like an identity, self-representation on a bigger map, let's say, on a European map. So I think in that way, maybe Timisoara and Klein Wien are very similar, trying to find their role in a bigger map. Okay.
Can I ask, I don't know, maybe somebody else has some questions. But,
yes.
But I would be also interested in if you found any difficulties in your research in Vienna during your residency, because you had a very precise idea, and and I got to know about it. But how was your experience during this time?
Oh, it was, I mean, I like to think of myself as being flexible. So I try to, not get into it with a very, Susanna, can you mute?
Yeah, sure.
Okay, that's great. Okay, so yeah, I had difficulties. I don't speak German, so that's a very big thing. Okay? So I had to manage with Google and asking other people what things mean, which is annoying. And then, yeah, another difficulty I think we all had with the lockdown. So I couldn't go to museums, or if I did, I went trying to photograph as much as possible, and then during lockdown trying to process everything that I gathered. But it was also quite the opportunity, because there was this conference at Volkskunde Museum, which happened online, so I could attend. Otherwise, probably I would not even known of it. And kind of opened some possibilities, because afterwards I got in touch with them, and I was able to ask for specific things in asking for access to their archive. And then they recommended me to Martin Kekis at the Photo Artist Institute, and that was also a very good meeting, and so on and so forth. So yeah, so it was very, I don't know, I haven't been through this kind of process, so I don't know, I didn't have much expectations of how hard it's going to be, but it was pretty, I mean, it was a lot of work.
Does anyone else has questions?
I actually have a question to Ana. Hi.
Hi, Katya.
And thank you so much for the presentation. And I wanted to ask you, because I know that you started your research focusing on Little Vienna, but then I had the feeling, as you were talking about all the things that you investigated, especially the collections, that it also tells us a lot about the empire itself, and like a lot about this strange, like, I mean, we all know this tendency, of course, from either the Natural History Museum or ethnographic collections to collect, and to kind of create this impression that they are accumulating knowledge, but at the same time, there is, I mean, what you mentioned with the misrepresentations, the problematics of labeling, and also in a way, like all the ignorance, so to say. So I just was curious, like, what impressions you had of the empire, so to say, because you had this focus more on the Austro-Hungarian period and how it was operating with with these collections.
Yeah, well, I think, yeah, collections are done and meant to say things about the collector. So I think the way, yeah, it's like you said, the way they work, these museums and public collections are based on private collections, but done by various emperors. So you can go to a museum and look, like Weltmuseum, and look through the collection through those glasses, let's say. But what I can say I very much enjoyed, especially in Welt and Volkskunde, was this critical look and like a more self-aware, because ethnography, of course, is a science that can be very I don't know. You have to be very self-critical in order to keep your bias in check. I think it comes from a position of power, and it looks to an object of lesser power. So it's very difficult to still make and still be in the ethnographic field the way used to 100 years ago. So I was super excited and very happy to see that they are not actually, and the collections are presented in a critical way, and you can then relate again to ethnography by looking at the way those type photographies were made, and what was their purpose, what was the, let's say, propagandic purpose of them. So yeah, it's very interesting to me. It was this missing Timișoara from the picture which kind of took me by surprise, to be honest. Like I found photographs from Lugoj, which is a very small town near Timișoara, and various villages very close to Timișoara, but I could not find one photo from Timișoara, like one type, like one thing. And I think that's on me, actually. I think I didn't get to see, all the archives that are available. I mean, in Vienna, this thing is amazing, and there are so many museums, there are so many archives to see. So I'm looking forward to finding Timișoara somewhere.
Does anyone else have a question?
You mentioned something as an outside view from an inside. How did it change? How did your view changed being in Vienna and researching on this? Is there any difference before you came to Vienna and now?
I don't think so. I don't think there is. I mean, it's just like 2 months. I have to be, like, all the time I had to really think of my bias, not to turn this research into something that goes the other way. Like, okay, we talk about decolonization, but do we do it in a nationalistic way, or where is this going? So I always kind of had to keep in mind that I don't want to, I want to try to keep a perspective of sorts. And the way I tried that was by reading from different points of view. For instance, there are some various texts which were written in different periods, and they were trying to fight, the current regime. So if you would read something by which was written during the Magyarization of the the Banat, then it will be against the Hungarian kingdom. I mean, if you would read something by Griselini, then it would be very positive towards the empire and transmitting those ideas like when the siege of Timisoara happened, everything was kind of destroyed or was deserted. The land was deserted. There was no one living there. This kind of discourse, which is very similar to other empires occupying lands. So I think, yeah, I have to read all these, but then keep in mind that maybe it's more nuanced than this, or at the same time, I'm not a scientist, I'm an artist. So I was also thinking, okay, but how is this different from ethnographic research? Or of course, I have my own interests, and I will pursue them more or less on a whim. So this is also like going to Klein Wien obviously didn't help the data, the collecting of data, but I thought it was such a wonderful thing to do and such a good joke to make. And yeah, I just couldn't resist doing it. From a researcher point of view, it doesn't make much sense to go there. So yeah, I don't feel like my view has changed, but then again, I did learn a lot, especially from this meeting with ethnographers. Yeah. Okay.
Okay.
Do we have anyone else? Or oh, hi there.
Yeah, sorry. I just wanted to can you hear me?
Sure.
Yeah, okay, sorry. I just wanted to say hi to everyone and to you, Anna, especially, and say sorry that I only could step in a bit late and I missed parts of your presentation, unfortunately, but what I saw, I was very happy that it seemed to be quite fruitful for you, and all the images you already kind of gathered from Volkskunde Museum and all your Naturhistorisches and wherever you have been. So that was makes me happy that it seems that you find some research despite all these limitations of lockdown and language and so sorry for being late and not able to fully grasp your presentation, but happy to see you somehow productive and happy, and just wanted to say hi. And yeah, obviously you have to come back. I mean, it was also nice to hear that you found it so a lot more to explore here in Vienna. So yeah, I hope to have you back here. And then also it would be interesting to learn more about what you how you work with the material in your artistic means, and what maybe can be a future outcome of it.
Thank you, Heidi, and also for helping me so much during this project. Yeah, so Heidi was the one that made a lot of connections, and it kind of opened up this whole research, which I was before kind of doing it just on my own, not was very it was not super productive, let's say. So thank you so much, Heine.
There's nothing to thank for. You were very selbstständig, what's the English term for, yeah.
Independent.
Thank you. Independent.
Okay. Then, is anyone else or?
Okay, then thank you very much, Anna. It was very interesting to see this connection between Timisoara and Vienna. And thank you on behalf of the Q21 team. And thank you for the participation, and thanks to everyone. And yeah, I wish you a wonderful evening.
Yes, thank you so much. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye, ciao.